The following content contains material that may be triggering to some audiences.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast by CommQuest. My name is Bill. If this is your first time here, first of all, welcome. And what we try to do here is share messages of hope. That whether your journey is one of recovery from mental health, addiction, or simply your circumstances, recovery is possible and a better life is possible. A lot of times we have people share their personal journey on this podcast, and sometimes we have providers who share their techniques and so forth about how they help people. And today we have a little bit of both. Our guest is Richard Rushin. Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Yep, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you. Richard is the Next Level Employment Coordinator, Youth Employment Specialist for Next Level Employment. Richard is here to tell his own personal story of how his circumstances early in life sent him on the path to become who he is today. It is a journey of struggle, but also has a message of hope, which, as I mentioned, is central to our message here at CommQuest. Let's start with what you do now, the organization that I mentioned, Next Level Employment. I know a lot of times people don't understand exactly what that is. Can you tell us a little bit about what that department does?
Yeah, so Next Level Employment is just an employment program. We teach employment skills to young adults, some who struggle to keep employment, and it may be due to some things that they're doing wrong as far as simple stuff, knowing, don't take 30-minute break if the break is only supposed to be 10 minutes. Oh, I thought I could do it. Just simple stuff that, young teenagers mess up on,
Sure.
or young adults.
Yeah.
Just so we're just brushing up on their skills. So we're just teaching them, the basics of employment skills. So our whole goal is to change the unemployment rate and kind of bring it up a little bit. So
that's a very important thing and so many times just a simple thing like how to conduct yourself in an interview. A lot of us take it for granted, but some people just simply have not had the benefit of a background where people have helped them with that. So
Right.
That's very, very important. Now, what exactly is your role at Next Level as obviously one of the key members there?
So when I started as peer support, and I kind of worked my way up into being the program coordinator. So my role now is just providing my staff with the necessary tools that they have in order to do their job, and also make sure that the clients have what they need and have the things that they need to be successful. So one of the things that is cool about Next Level Employment is if we have a kid going to an interview, but they don't have interview clothes, we can fund that 100%. So that's what I do in the background, is just making sure that, the clients have what they need as well as the staff have what they need to do their job.
Now, you are from this area, correct? Generally, Stark County?
Yes.
Okay. I noticed a couple of what I would call maybe phases as I researched your story. The first phase would be your early childhood in the foster care system. And then the next phase would be what you describe as your last foster home. And that means more than just what the words indicate. And we'll get to that. And then the current phase that you're in, which kind of was your awakening that made you who you are today. That's kind of how I kind of perceived it. So let's kind of start with your early days. What were those like? And I know that I'll give a little trigger warning here. This might be difficult for some people to listen to, but I feel it is important. What were some of your early days like? In from what I understand, you went from foster home to foster home. So can you talk a little bit about that and what happened?
Yeah. So at the age of 5 months old, my mom, me and my twin brother were the 9th and 10th child of my mother. My mom had 10 kids. Due to drugs, we were all taken out of the home. So like I said, we were taken at 5 months old. And then I started my journey into the foster care system. Of course, I don't remember, 5 months old.
Sure.
The earliest I probably remember is around 4 or 5 years old, having family visits with mom. And, case managers explaining, hey, we got a plan with your mother. If she sticks to the plan, you guys can, you all go home. So being excited at these family visits and just remember having a very close bond with my mom. And I think it's just natural in life. You have a bond with your parents no matter what. Even if they're abusing you, you still love them because it's your mom, it's your dad. So there's a bond there that can't be broken pretty much. So I remember going to family visits and just being ecstatic, being excited. And then, one day those visits stopped. And at 5 and 6 years old, case managers are telling me, due to drug addiction, you can't have the visits anymore. Mom won't be able to get you because of this and that. Being that young, not comprehending what drugs even was, I just became angry and upset. So, I tried to, I acted out in anger pretty much. So with that being said, I started moving from a foster home to foster home. And a lot of it was due to anger and not understanding. And at a young age, I thought, well, hey, if I'm bad enough, they'll have to give me back to mom. No one else is going to want me or want to put up with me. So I played that game a little bit in my earlier life. And then I noticed it wasn't working. I noticed I was moving homes a lot. I was moving schools a lot. And it just wasn't working. So I decided, well, I see I'm not going back home. At this point, I've probably been through 5 or 6 homes. And I said, by now, I should have been back home if they were going to do it. So there was times where I started to try to change and just do the right thing. But at those times when I tried to switch to do the right thing, I was placed in some abusive situations. So some of the homes that I lived in with foster parents where there were paid to watch and nurture and show love, that wasn't happening. So there was physical abuse, there was verbal abuse as well. So that kind of spiraled me into being even more angry because here I am trying to do the right thing for once. And now the place where I'm supposed to be shown love is abuse,
Sure. I know some of the abuse was physical.
Right.
Do you just want to give the audience an idea of what happened there?
There was there's whoopings and then there's beatings. The difference. I've been beat with the stitching cords and anything that they could get a hold of. One home I was particularly, and I remember this one vivid. I don't like stuffing, and whatever this person put out, they thought, you should eat it no matter what. So I ate it, and of course I threw it up, and she tried to make me eat to throw up. Oh. So. And that was just a couple incidents there. And it took a while for caseworkers to see bruising and things of that nature before I finally got taken out of the home. Not saying that race plays a factor in this, but I am Black, so my skin's a little darker, so it's harder to see bruises. Yeah. So, but after they saw them, I was removed from that home. But it wasn't my last abusive home. But, there was some foster homes I was in where they would lock me outside and I couldn't get in until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You wouldn't feel that family value. I didn't feel that the family value wasn't there. When I went inside the house to eat dinner, they had already ate. I would have to eat upstairs or downstairs in the basement, or I just never felt that family dynamic in a lot of these homes. I was looked at as if I was a check because that's pretty much what I was. They paid, foster care. Unfortunately, back then, they didn't do everything that they're doing today to reinsure that the right people are getting these children. In the early 90s, anyone could become a foster parent, and the money's quite well. If you get 3, 4, 5 kids, you might make, believe it or not, 6 figures a year. But there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way. So I was placed in a lot of homes where they were not doing it the right way. Like I said, there's different things in stone today that makes it harder for people to just do it for the money. They make sure that you can actually afford your lifestyle before you can become a foster parent today. So
that's interesting because my father actually was in an abusive foster care system. Obviously, he was decades before what you went through. Yeah. And I always presumed by the 1990s that some of that got straightened out. That's amazing to me. A question I have for you is my dad did have a brother, and I don't know why, but they always seem to separate the siblings or whatever. Did that happen in your case?
Absolutely. Like I said, my mom had 10 kids. When they took everybody, 2 of my sisters was together, but everybody else was separate. Me and my twin brother were separate. We lived together once. We were up for adoption once, and we were living in Liberty, Youngstown. And at that time, we were together, but, we're twins, so we're competitive. We fight. I mean, all brothers fight, all siblings fight, but they thought that wasn't normal. So then after that home, they split us, and we've never been back together. Now, there was a situation where we went to our last foster home where I lived, and then he actually lived right behind me with the daughter. Mm-hmm. So that was the closest that we've been. But yeah, typically they do split them. And then, in this market, and I hate to call it a market, but when parents are looking to adopt or foster care or foster a child, they normally only want one, or they want 2, but a lot of cases they want one. Oh, I only want girls. Right. Oh, I only want boys. So therefore, if you're twins and you're a boy and a girl, then that's one gets separated because I only want the one. Yeah. So that happens a lot in foster care. There is some homes where I've seen people try to keep the family members together, but often, I don't want girls. I just want boys, or vice versa.
You describe in your story what you call was your last foster home, and I told the audience that that has a little bit more meaning than just the number, the last one in the sequence. That there's significance there. Do you want to talk a little bit about what happened in that last foster home?
Yeah, so I was around 12, believe it or not, and I'm going to my 25th foster home. And everything was different. It was when I went to the door, first of all, it was the nicest house I've ever been to, by the way. They just had it built a year prior to me showing up. Mm-hmm. So I get to this house, and I used to tease my twin brother because I swear he used to get all the best foster homes where, they would throw birthday parties. He would get gifts. I never got that. Yeah. There was times where I was just in group homes, and, those are not the best. But anyway, I go to this house, and there's a guy. He's about 6'2", maybe 350 pounds. Big guy, but a light voice. And he looks at me, and apparently, when you get a new kid, they tell you the background and things of that nature. So he knew I've been in a lot of homes. So he looks at me and says, "This is going to be your last home." I'm laughing in my head like, mm-hmm. He has no idea. Yeah. We'll see. So I go there, but when I say every dynamic has changed from every other home that I was in, I mean, when I got in trouble in school, there was a conversation had. There was no physical abuse. There was no threats. It was a conversation at a table. Hey, son, how can I help you? How can I help you be better? How can I help you not to do this, not to do that? Mm-hmm. Now, because I moved so much, I was behind academically. And sometimes a lot of kids misbehave because they are behind academically. They don't want to feel, as the world would call them, dumb or, not intelligent, so they act out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I was acting out because I was like, I didn't want to be targeted as the dumb kid. So a lot of times I acted out because of that. But in this home, my dad noticed it, foster dad at the time noticed it, and then the school noticed it also. So they put me in tutoring. Kumon Math and Reading in North Canton is a great program. Anybody listening, if you have a child that is in need of math and reading, Kumon in North Canton is awesome. But in this home, it was just different. It was a conversation being had. He was telling me he believed in me. The people at school was telling me that they believed in me. And at the time, I didn't believe in me. I didn't have drive, and at the time I told myself I didn't even have feelings, so whatever happens in life happens, because I've had such a bad hand. When bad stuff would happen, I was so used to it. I didn't know good things could happen. But in this last home, he treated me like family, and it was unbelievable to me. There's a word I'm looking for. I had family value. Family privilege. That's the word I'm looking for. So I had family privilege. I was able to go in the refrigerator when I needed to. I didn't have to ask, "Oh, can I get something to eat?" I could just get something to eat. When we ate dinner, sat down at a table. We all ate dinner together. Other homes, they didn't do that. They would have you eat in a separate room, or go upstairs to the attic or go to the basement and eat. But here we all ate as a family at the table. And he just gave me life lessons. And there was a mom there as well. So, and I would say I was a mama's boy and a dad's kid as well. But just the love that they showed me and treated me as if I was theirs, even to this day. Buying my first car, teaching me how to pay bills, and just telling me, life won't always be easy. It's going to be a struggle in the beginning, just, sharing those life lessons with me at a young age, preparing me for the world to come out here. One of the biggest things I think he shared with me is having a relationship with God. I think my spiritual relationship with God helped me get through a lot of the trauma that I had to face in life. So, not to sound like a minister or anything, but
no, not at all.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much church can have an effect in a relationship with God. So, but more than anything, that's what he showed me. And, I would get up early in the morning and he would be reading his Bible, and then he would share certain things with me. And that kind of piqued my interest. We started going to church, and the more I started to grow a relationship with God and was able to, forgive some of the people who abused me. I was able to, meet with my biological mother and forgive her for not being there. And, that was big for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had hate in my heart, in my mind and soul for her.
Sure.
But I was able to forgive her because, God was able to forgive all of us, or else we wouldn't be here, in my mind, if you're a believer. So, but yeah, it was awesome. That last home.
You had mentioned that he had made the comment to you that this is going to be your last foster home. And that impressed me, because from his point of view, with all the children that he must have dealt with, you never know what you're going to be up against.
Right.
So that's so wonderful to hear that. Now, you mentioned goals and dreams that you really didn't have a whole lot until about this time period.
Right.
How important are goals and dreams in someone's life?
I think they're very, very important. At the same time I moved to this new home, I've always had teachers that poured into me and believed in me and saw things that I didn't see in myself. Chris Heyman she was a teacher at Glen Oak that I would go in her room to take tests. I had an IEP. A lot of people don't know that. I talk openly about it. I'm not ashamed of it. So that was like my IEP teacher. So if I had a test, I would go in there and take it. If I had a bad day or, teacher was treating me funny, I could go to Mrs. Heyman's room. So senior year comes up and Miss Heyman's like, hey, you ever thought about college? And I'm like, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. My dad, he's like, yeah, you should go to college. He's probably almost 80 now. So back in his day, he'd be lucky to graduate middle school or high school. So he's like, yeah, you need to go to college. It'd be good. It'd be great. But, I didn't know what to go for. So Miss Heyman took me to Stark State and we toured it, and I went to a couple other college visits. But I opted into Stark State, and I said, and me and my twin brother at the time, we were both like, well, hey, what do we want to do? So, and at that time we were public speaking together at different schools, and we've been, on planes, flew to South Dakota for conferences and things of that nature. So we both decided to just do social work. So I went to school for social work. I did 2 years at Stark State, and the start of my third year, I had got married, so that kind of postponed that. But at that point, and that's when I became a peer support for, at the time, it was Community Services
right.
of Stark County. And then I've just been working here ever since, and trying to get the wife through school so that I can go back and finish.
You mentioned the teachers. One of the stories that kind of stood out for me was one of them invited you over for dinner.
Correct.
And that made an impression on you, just to see another side of life.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So at the time I'm at Shipley at school. Shipley has a school for kids with challenges. So I went there. And then it was close to Thanksgiving, and everyone was talking about the food that they would be eating. And I knew I was at the group home. It was going to be some nasty food. A lot of times we had male staff, which is fine, but a majority of men are not great cookers. even to this day, I can grill. There's a few things I can cook, but I'm not as good as my wife or say my mom was at cooking. So I said, I'll be at the group home eating their nasty food, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher looked at me and she gave me a look and I didn't know what that meant. But after class, she's like, hey, what would you like to come eat Thanksgiving dinner with me and my family? And at first, I thought she was crazy because I thought I was a challenging student. And I'm like, why would you invite me to your house? But she invited me over to her house. She got permission from my case manager. And mind you, I was living in a group home. It was called Alsace Team Center, which was over by the old timers. I can't think of the name of that park, but it wasn't in the greatest of neighborhoods. So she comes and gets me and I go to her house. And I mean, it was a beautiful house. I met her children, which were around the same age as me. And it just took me out of my environment. I didn't realize that some people live this way. Yeah. When I watch TV, I would see people in nice houses and the kids would have all the favorite toys. And at the time I'm young, so I'm like, oh, they got the latest toys. I just seen this toy on a commercial. So I'm really enjoying myself, had a blast. And one of the things I remember eating a lot of was pumpkin pie. Her family, I don't know why they had so many pies. It is Thanksgiving, so maybe you do bring a lot of pies to Thanksgiving, but I probably remember eating at least 2 or 3 pumpkin pies. Mm-hmm. And I remember not too long ago, I public spoke at a school where she worked, and she knew I was coming, and she brought me a pumpkin pie. So it was awesome. Oh. But her taking me out of my environment was everything. And a lot of times I think for our inner city kids or youth, I think that's all they see. So for me, to go back to the dreams and visions and things of that nature, I had to be taken out of my environment. Yeah. And it was 3rd grade, she took me to her house. And ever since that day, I was like, oh man, I can have that. And because I told her, oh, this is a beautiful home. Oh, you can have one of these one day. If you work hard, you could do this. You can have that. And it's funny now, I live maybe a mile and a half away from her. Yeah. So she said I could do it, and I started to believe that I could. And now, like I said, I live a mile and a half away from her as right now. And I don't even think she knows that yet.
Well, you'll have to let her know.
Yeah.
You mentioned forgiveness earlier for some of the things that have been done to you. And you mentioned that you, I guess on your path, you used forgiveness and you used what was done to you in the past as fuel. And you said that's a combination that you have to put together.
Right.
I find that really intriguing. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I try to use everything that's happened to me as fuel. A lot of people use what happened to them to keep them almost at a standing still point. A lot of people, life has happened and, whether it be, molestation, rape, or physical abuse, verbal abuse, or abusive spouse, or whatever the case may be, people allow those circumstances to allow them to keep them stagnant. They just don't move. They stay there and they vast in it. And instead of staying in that spot and looking at the abuse, verbal and physical, and saying, this is what it is, and just being consumed by what happened to me, I use that to fuel me. So yeah, this happened, but I'm still alive. So to me, as long as I have breath, then I have to continue on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the depression happened. Yes, the abuse happened. It was physical. Yes, this happened. Unspeakable things happened, but I'm still breathing. So I must continue. I must use what happened to me as fuel. A lot of people don't. And like I said, my relationship with God, I think, helped tremendously. I did go to a lot of counseling, but God allowed me to look at it and say, hey, look, you went through all this, but I brought you through it. And, a lot of people allow certain storms and situations to be them. That abuse happened, and now that, they don't do anything else in life. They don't strive to do anything greater. They don't strive to go anywhere in life. They don't have any life goals, or they used to, but because this one particular thing happened, they give up on life. So that's why I say we have to use what happened to us as fuel. Yeah. You can't allow what happened to you to allow you to be stagnant, to allow you to be stuck at a place where you can't move.
Yeah. I'm guessing that the forgiveness part is tied into your faith a little bit, that's something that you have to unload. You can't carry that burden. Is that correct?
Right. And then you realize when I was having hatred in my heart for, my birth mother for not being there, because, you can easily blame her because if I was with her, maybe that abuse wouldn't have happened. But if I was with her, maybe even worse would have happened. So it wasn't until I got older and I hear of the ACEs study and I get to know more about trauma and different things of that nature. And then you realize that everyone was raised differently. So she might have been doing the best she could do, even if I would have lived with her, or people that's listening that were in abusive situations by their own parents. Maybe they were doing the best they could do. Maybe they're just doing what was done to them. So knowing that, I was able to forgive her for that. And, and when you forgive someone, it takes a load off of you.
Sure.
So if you have 10 people and you holding grudges and you don't like them, that's like carrying 10 backpacks full of books because you have to carry it everywhere you go. And when you release it and you forgive them, it's you no longer have that weight. So a lot of it was spiritual in order to forgive them. But then after you realize, hey, I walk around and I breathe a lot better. I can take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out and feel a lot better knowing that I forgave them.
Yeah. I'm going to guess that in your profession now, when you talk to young people, I'm guessing here, but it seems like a reasonable presumption that your background makes you more relatable to a lot of the kids who are going through the same thing. Because I'm here again, I'm guessing, but when somebody who's been in a place where you have been, to be approached by someone that says, hey, you can do it. All you have to do is work hard. And that person has never been through that journey. It can ring a little hollow. Is that true?
I think that's very true. When I went into social work, there was some blessed social workers that just had the gift to reach people. But a lot of times as foster kids and as youth, we look at adults, and if you got a dress shirt, we see as white collared people. You don't know. You just went to school. You got a degree. You don't have any lived experience.
Yeah.
And I think with me having lived experience, it makes it a lot easier for me to relate to youth because I can say, hey, look, I've been here. Recently I had a couple, clients with IEPs and I had an IEP, or I can't do this, or I can't. I'm like, hey, I had one too. So, I don't want you to use that as a crutch or an excuse. I had one too, and I still, the outcomes were great. But you have to believe that. So, and I would say right now, that's probably one of the biggest things that I think in my program, I struggle with a lot of people having IEPs, but, the school tells them, oh, don't try. You got an IEP, you could just move on. Don't even worry about it.
What exactly is that?
It's an individual opportunity plan, and it's made. So for me, I needed extra test time. I learn differently than everyone else. So most people in school with an IEP, they just learn differently. Some of them, their IEP plan might be for them to go to a different classroom and they might, instead of getting an hour to take a test, they might get an hour and a half or 2 hours. During ACTs, maybe they don't comprehend what they read, so maybe they need someone to read it to them. That way they comprehend it better. So that's what it is. It's based and made off of each client. Each student is different. So someone's IEP might be, hey, they just need 20 minutes extra. Some IEPs might say, hey, they need 30 or 40 minutes. So it all depends on the student and what their needs are, but it's to make them more successful in school. But there's a downfall when educators say the wrong things. So we have that no child left behind here. It's supposed to be a great thing. But if you have an IEP, you move on no matter what. So if you're in the 6th grade, you struggle, but you have an IEP, guess what? Next year, you're still going to the 7th. If you don't have it, they may fail you. You redo the 5th or the 6th. You don't go to the 7th. But with an IEP, they move you on no matter what. So now we're getting generations coming out of school not knowing how to read, not knowing how to spell, not knowing how to write, because some educator told, oh, don't even try. You got an IEP, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
The IEP will make sure that you'll pass. And then you have students adopting this mindset where I don't have to try.
Yeah.
And, we get them in our program. And it's like they haven't been trying. I'm like, well, just because you have an IEP doesn't mean, because, you can take it with you to college, but in the real world, when you get a job, I can't tell CommQuest, hey, look, it's a rough week this week and I had an IEP in school, so you got to let me slide. They don't know. Yeah. If the job's not done, I can be wrote up or fired. So, but yeah, that's a big issue, I think, in the community.
Yeah.
In the education system as a whole. But yeah.
It's just like that old saying about the best of intentions, right?
Yeah.
Amazing story. And I would have to wrap this up with this question because it is so important. There are so many young people out there in truly hopeless situations. I mean, whether it be abuse from foster parents, from parents, no guidance. A lot of times they just don't get the help that they need from the community and the resources. What message of hope would you have for someone like that?
I think that the biggest message I can give them is don't give up. You may be going through abuse. You may be going through a hard time. But like I said earlier, you have to use that as fuel. And it's hard to accept that when you're going through it. But I think, we go through things in life so that we can help others. So look at it in a perspective that one day me going through this will be able to help someone else. Because you're not, and at the time you feel like it's you by yourself, but it's never you by yourself. There's always someone else going through what you're going through. You may not know them. And you may go to school with them and look at them, or you may go to work with them, or you may be around them on the daily, but you don't tell your story, so you don't know. You guys are probably going through the same thing. So if I was, anything I could say is just keep the faith, keep believing, don't give up on your dreams, no matter what, and use what has happened to you, or if it's happening now, if it's abuse, and it's abuse, hopefully you can get to someone or report that abuse. There's so many different hotlines and places where, people can go for abuse now that weren't available years ago. So I don't want to tell you to keep dealing with abuse. If you're being physically or verbally abused, of course, try to get out of that situation, but use the abuse as fuel. And then just share your story. I think public speaking for me about what happened to me, it's been a blessing in disguise. I go to schools and speak, and at the end of me talking, because I told my story, there's 6-7 kids with counselors now. And, unfortunately, reports are having to be made because they were going through abuse at home. Yeah. A, B, C, or D was happening. That shouldn't have been happening. But now, because I was bold enough to share my story, it was able to help them. So, the best thing I can say is just keep the faith if you're a believer, and then just, don't give up on yourself. It's hard right now, but it does get better. Mm-hmm. In life, you will have up times where, everything seems to be going fine, but there's always going to be a hill. There's a top of a hill, there's a bottom of the hill. Yes. So there's always a time to go to the bottom. And at the bottom is where life teaches you mostly how to be strong. Yeah. Everything that I've went through made me stronger today. Yeah. And sometimes in life we have to go through in order to help others. Yeah. It's just like if you go to church and your pastor's never done anything in the world. Oh, I've never drank. I never smoked. I never cussed. I never fornicated. I never had sex before marriage. I probably wouldn't want to go there. Yeah. I want to be a leader to be over me that's been through some things. So we have something in common. Sure. So I think a lot of times when we go through, we have to look at it that way. Yeah. I'm going through so that I can help someone else. Yeah. Because like I said, if you're just a white collar, oh, you just went to school, got a degree, and you're telling me, oh, you can do it. Go ahead, I believe in you, but you've never had to struggle. You don't know what it's like to go to bed hungry. You've never been abused. In fact, your parents paid your whole way through college. You're a spoiled brat. I mean, it's going to be harder for them to agree with you.
Yeah.
But when you have lived experience and you say, hey, look, I've been in your shoes. I've been there. I know you can make it. That makes the world a difference.
Yeah.
So a lot of times in life we go through because we're in the future, we're going to help someone else get through what they're going through.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing we went through.
Yeah. There's always the argument, the debate about education versus real life experience. And that comes up a lot in business and other things. I would have to say in this kind of work, the combination that you have is invaluable. Yeah. And then there's an intangible. Science refers to it as the will. Religion talks about it as the soul. Mm-hmm. But I think you have a very special one. And I don't doubt that the people you touch in your life are very lucky to have you, Richard. I mean, you're quite the person and you do fantastic work. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, again, we're talking to Richard Rushin, and he is part of the next level employment section that we have here at CommQuest. Now, to find out more about CommQuest, regardless of our services, we have a host of them. I would advise you to go to CommQuest.org. And once again, that is CommQuest.org. Thank you very much, Richard. Great story. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening. And we will talk to you again. And this has been the Hope Discovered podcast by CommQuest.